XX con Mike Wallace. A continuación, en siglo XX, Armas y Dioses, los asedios de Waco y Ruby Ridge. Ambas tragedias, que podían ser evitadas, fueron causadas por decisiones erradas e imperfecciones burocráticas, pero para una minoría militante fueron episodios amargos de una conspiración para trastocar la Constitución y destruir la libertad individual.
And if the government continues to distance itself from the people, then war is inevitable.
La historia de cómo un sano escepticismo sobre el gobierno se convirtió en una peligrosa paranoia. Soy Mike Wallace y esto es Siglo XX. Siglo XX con Mike Wallace. Desde que los colonizadores se rebelaron a los impuestos sin representación y declararon su independencia de Inglaterra, ha existido una tradición antigubernamental y anticonstitucional en la política. Ralph Waldo Emerson dijo en el siglo XIX, mientras haya menos gobierno, mejor. Por ello, para muchos, los 50 años de crecimiento del gobierno federal a partir del New Deal no tenían sentido en los años 90. Estaban hartos del gobierno y se hizo aún más evidente en las elecciones de 1994.
The Republican Revolution of Election 94 shook Capitol Hill like an earthquake today. Its reverberations went into state houses and moved the whole political landscape sharply to the right.
Pero el clima que llevó a una nueva mayoría conservadora al Congreso tenía un componente más siniestro, una fracción de derecha radical que percibía la intromisión del gobierno federal como una gran conspiración para despojar a los individuos de sus derechos.
Sort of like the Wizard of Oz. There's somebody behind the curtains actually making things happen.
Kenneth Stern, abogado y experto en extremismo político en Estados Unidos, es el autor de Un poder por encima del ordinario, el movimiento de milicias estadounidense y las políticas del odio.
By the end of 1994, there were militia groups in 20 states. By the time I was writing a report in early April 1995 warning about the militia movement, there were militia groups in over 36 states. And by March of 1996, I'm not aware of any state that doesn't have some militia presence.
Hamilton, Montana. Population about 2,700. Most of the people ruggedly individualistic.
Y algunos de ellos ligados a la milicia de Montana, resentidos por lo que consideraban una intervención descarada del gobierno en sus vidas, en la forma de restricciones en el uso de la propiedad, derechos de apacentamiento, control de armas. Muchos habían perdido la fe en el voto como medio para resolver sus problemas. Problemas radicales requerían soluciones radicales, soluciones como amenazas de bombas en la corte y amenazas de muerte a un oficial del condado.
We have a group that really believes they can set up their own common law court. They can do as they please. They can live a life bounded only by their belief in God and the Constitution.
The wildlife is owned by the...
Como este hombre, Calvin Greenup, acusado de perpetrar actos de violencia contra oficiales públicos porque creía que se habían excedido en su autoridad y eran por ello culpables de traición.
Calvin's a man who believes that he's the last of the true American patriots, but he doesn't believe in the government of the United States of America. And he is adamantly opposed to most of the restrictions that government wants to put on everyday life. The American legal system doesn't exist to them.
O como el amigo de Greenup, Alan Hamilton, quien estaba en la corte ese día por amenazar a un oficial de policía debido a una licencia vencida.
I have not seen a signed complaint. I have not seen a signed affidavit.
Puesto que Hamilton creía que el juez Jeff Langton no tenía autoridad, intentó juzgarlo.
And it's your job to arrest this man for treason.
Mr. Hamilton, sit down.
This is not a trial.
Mr. Hamilton.
You cannot even give me contempt of
Mr.
court.
Hamilton.
This is not a court.
You're saying that there are a couple dozen people who have virtually paralyzed this small community?
I think that's a pretty good assessment.
Para Hamilton, Montana no era un caso aislado. En muchos lugares del país, fanáticos antigubernamentales se organizaban en milicias independientes, comunicándose entre sí con boletines y panfletos, transmisiones de radio sobre la supremacía de los blancos y hasta carteleras informativas en Internet. Su fervor era impulsado por visiones oscuras de algo llamado el Nuevo Orden Mundial.
What they believe is that this New World Order wants to subjugate Americans, wants to take away their individual liberties, wants to take away their freedom.
Our biggest enemy in America right now is domestic government officials.
It's sad when you can't trust people, but that's where we've gotten.
Para la gente como los Greenup, dos sucesos de los años 90 se convirtieron en símbolos de la determinación del gobierno federal de destruir su libertad individual. El asedio de los davidianos en las afueras de Waco, Texas, y el enfrentamiento entre el FBI y Randy Weaver en Ruby Ridge, Idaho.
This government doesn't care about life. Who raided Waco, Texas? Was it BATF? Was it FBI? Yes.
Randy Weaver.
Randy Weaver.
Randy Weaver y su esposa Vicky creían tanto en la no interferencia del gobierno que dejaron Iowa y se mudaron junto a sus hijos a una cabaña aislada en el norte de Idaho. Como muchos otros en la zona conocida como Ruby Ridge, su meta era vivir lo más alejados posible del alcance del gobierno. Pero cuando Randy Weaver fue acusado de vender 2 fusiles cortos a un informante de la Oficina de Alcohol, Tabaco y Armas de Fuego y luego no compareció ante la corte en la fecha establecida, los alguaciles trataron de arrestarlo.
The showdown began when Sammy Weaver and his dog Striker heard noises outside the family cabin on a lonely mountaintop called Ruby Ridge in northern Idaho. Chuck Peterson, an attorney for the Weaver family, picks up the story there.
The dog was standing up here with its legs up in the hill, barking, and in those woods were the marshals.
Fue el 21 de agosto de 1992. Los alguaciles habían estado observando la cabaña de la familia por 18 meses. Querían arrestar al padre de Sammy, Randy, bajo cargos de armas, pero no sería fácil.
The family was heavily armed. The dogs were alert, and on this day sniffed out the marshals. And now, as lawyer Peterson recalled, it was the lawmen on the run, the dog and the Weavers at their heels. Down this path to a fork where they turned.
They got about to this point,
and all hell broke loose. The FBI later filmed the scene. Agent shot the dog here. A marshal died there. Sammy further up the trail.
Sammy turns like this and starts to run, and as he's running up the hill, he gets hit once in the elbow, and then it's about at this location that he gets hit the second time. He says, I'm coming, Dad, and he gets hit in the back and drops and dies right here.
Un niño de 14 años había muerto, al igual que un alguacil condecorado. Ahora se habían dibujado aún más claramente las líneas de combate. De un lado, los hombres de la ley, y del otro, los que apoyaban a la familia Weaver. Los francotiradores del FBI lograron acercarse a la cabaña, bajo órdenes que, como se supo luego, iban contra la ley, pues violaban las reglas del FBI en cuanto al uso de fuerza implacable. Los francotiradores del gobierno localizados en Ruby Ridge estaban autorizados para disparar a cualquiera que estuviera armado, en lugar de limitarse a abrir fuego solo ante un individuo armado que los confrontara poniendo en peligro sus vidas. Al día siguiente, un francotirador que operaba bajo estas órdenes le disparó a Vicky, la esposa de Weaver, por error, mientras ella sostenía en sus brazos a su pequeña hija.
Unfortunately, Vicky is dead.
Aún entonces, Randy Weaver y un amigo, Kevin Harris, se negaron a rendirse.
For 9 long days, Randy Weaver has been holed up in this remote mountain cabin in Idaho, surrounded by an army of police and federal agents. Weaver is a white supremacist wanted on gun charges.
Disorder have all his saints!
Pero para los revoltosos, cabezas rapadas y demás defensores que se mantenían en vigilia cerca de su cabaña, Weaver era un héroe popular, un hombre que se enfrentaba al maligno gobierno federal.
Pray for Vicky and Randy and Kevin and the girls and for little Sam. Praise Yahweh!
Finalmente, luego de 11 días de desafío,
44-year-old Randy Weaver surrendered with his 3 surviving children. The siege at the remote cabin began with a gunfight that left a U.S. Marshal and Weaver's 14-year-old son dead.
Semi-automatic rifle.
Desde el principio se sostuvo que los alguaciles y el FBI habían actuado de manera torpe, que habían reaccionado exageradamente, causando la muerte no solo del alguacil William Degan, sino también de Vicky y Sammy Weaver.
Never will you take another woman down. Never.
Más allá de quienes comparten los puntos de vista extremistas de Randy Weaver, el asedio de Ruby Ridge fue un incidente desafortunado y aislado. Un año después, esa percepción cambiaría por completo. Randy Weaver fue juzgado por los cargos originales y, a medida que progresaba el juicio y surgían más pruebas de la torpeza de los federales, otro enfrentamiento violento cautivó la atención y colocó en otra perspectiva lo que había sucedido en Ruby Ridge. La escena de la nueva confrontación era una llanura, a 2.000 kilómetros al sur. El caso involucraba a una oscura secta religiosa que compartía el amor de Randy Weaver por Dios y por las armas, David Koresh y los Davidianos. Al regreso, en siglo, la libertad de religión se honra en América y está garantizada en la Constitución. Pero cuando la fe se convierte en fanatismo, las consecuencias pueden ser mortales. Un año después del asedio en Ruby Ridge, el FBI y el ATF se encontraron inmersos en otro tenso enfrentamiento, esta vez con una comunidad religiosa en un recinto bien armado y frente a las cámaras de televisión que transmitían en vivo a toda la nación. Para muchos, lo que sucedió en Waco, Texas, era una repetición de Ruby Ridge, con un final aún más dramático y mortal. Algunos lo llamaban el Monte del Carmelo, otros Rancho del Apocalipsis, para describir a una secta cristiana fundamentalista poco conocida y comprendida llamada Estudiantes de los Siete Sellos o Davidianos. Guiados por David Koresh, un desertor de secundaria con una visión mesiánica, los Davidianos habían atraído la atención de la Oficina Federal de Alcohol, Tabaco y Armas de Fuego por el creciente número de armas y explosivos en su poder.
Agents working undercover infiltrated the cult, attending services for more than a month. They found each day after the service the men, women, and children separated to different locations. Only Koresh was allowed to be intimate with the women, and only Koresh had the key to the gun room with all of the weapons inside.
Armados con órdenes de registro y armas propias, un equipo de 30 agentes de la ATF, respaldados por 70 oficiales estatales y locales, entraron en el recinto davidiano el 28 de febrero del año 93.
The warrant was for Branch Davidian's 33-year-old leader, Vernon Howell, also known as David Koresh, who claims to be the Lamb of God and admits his 75-member sect stockpiles assault weapons in preparation for Armageddon. The men and women who work for ATF prepare for and carry out hundreds of these raids every year. This time, something went terribly wrong.
The first agents in found that the men were armed and ready. 3 agents who went through the gunroom window were killed. Another died leaving his car.
Lynch, we're taking fire from those guys. Tell Wayne that ATF will cease fire, that they will cease fires, and we'll pull back.
It sounds like they're firing now. That y'all are making the move, and they're going to defend themselves to the last man.
El tiroteo continuó durante 45 minutos y para ese entonces 4 agentes federales habían muerto y otros 16 se encontraban heridos. Al menos 2 davidianos estaban muertos. Luego cesó el fuego y la ATF se retiró.
I don't believe it's that we were outmaneuvered or outplanned. The problem we had is that we were outgunned.
Hold to the right!
Comenzó el enfrentamiento. Los agentes federales sabían que los davidianos, quienes también se hacían llamar los marinos de Dios, no se rendirían sin pelear.
They come in here with a gun and they start shooting at us. What would you do? Tell me, be realistic. This is America. This is not Australia. This is not Europe. This is not where a country overthrows a bunch of people, takes away their weapons so that the people cannot argue any issues.
We didn't come in with guns smoking. We announced our presence and said we had a warrant. It happens all over this country, night after night after night. If it's justifiable to shoot a law enforcement officer because you're somehow protecting your home against somebody who's serving a lawful warrant, then God help us.
Pero la única ley que los seguidores de Koresh obedecían era la que provenía de las enseñanzas de su líder.
Well, he is a very charismatic individual. He's a good speaker. He knows how to do a heck of a tap dance through the Bible.
Y creía profundamente en la poligamia.
Yeah, I was his wife. I was. And so was my daughter, and so was 15 other people in there.
He truly believes that he's the Son of God. I don't.
You believed that for a while, too.
Probably like for a month.
El 1 de marzo de 1993, a un día del enfrentamiento, el FBI llegó para apoyar a la ATF para el término del asedio. Pero en lugar de eso, el FBI se vio envuelto en una serie de negociaciones con falsas promesas de rendición. Primero, Koresh dijo que se rendiría si las estaciones de radio transmitían este mensaje.
I, David Koresh, agree upon the broadcasting of this tape to come out peacefully. All the people here at the facility compound here, as y'all call it, will give ourselves over to the world.
Prison buses were brought in, local hospitals put on standby. But by late afternoon, an obvious snag.
I've just got off the phone with ATF. They advised me that we are still in a standoff position at Mount Carmel.
Koresh había roto su promesa de rendirse, explicando que estaba en la espera de un mensaje de Dios.
We are going through a very frustrating and disappointing period in the negotiation process. Once we appear to be going forward and meeting what they are requesting, oftentimes they are rejecting even proposals that they have submitted.
Durante los primeros 10 días del asedio, la única concesión de Koresh fue liberar a 21 niños y 2 ancianas.
In Texas, authorities say they are willing to wait as long as necessary to work out a peaceful end to the siege there.
Well, what all of us want to do is to make sure there are no more deaths and no more injuries, so we're prepared to take as long as it takes to come to that conclusion. So yes, we're prepared to sit there for a long time.
Pero mientras los días del enfrentamiento se hacían semanas, Koresh continuaba dando largas al asunto, diciendo que se negaba a rendirse porque era la voluntad de Dios. El FBI decidió aumentar la presión sobre Koresh para obligarlo a rendirse. Helicópteros del gobierno sobrevolaban el recinto de día. En las noches, ruidos y luces interrumpían los patrones normales del sueño de sus ocupantes. Era el comienzo de la tercera semana y las autoridades tuvieron una reunión cara a cara con los ayudantes de Koresh para tratar de negociar un arreglo.
It was an attempt on our part to get the conversations moving again and to try and get something triggered here that might lead to the resolution of this incident.
Pero no se logró resolver nada. Algunos observadores comenzaron a preguntarse si el enfrentamiento terminaría algún día. El FBI y la ATF, frustrados, aumentaron aún más la presión.
An armored tank rolled into the front yard of the besieged compound and unceremoniously pushed aside and destroyed a boat belonging to the Branch Davidians. The armor also knocked down trees and part of a wall.
Vernon Howell thinks he's the Lamb of God, when all he is a cheap thug who interprets the Bible through the barrel of a gun.
Cult members unfurled another accusation from an upstairs window, a banner which said, FBI, God sees your lies. On the other side, a renewed sense of frustration seems to have set in among agents who had hoped the Branch Davidians' Passover holiday might bring an end to the 41-day standoff.
Koresh pudo haber cumplido con la Pascua, pero no con su promesa de rendirse.
In an overnight telephone conversation, he started cursing negotiators, acting as one federal official characterized it, not like a representative of Jesus Christ. Agents hung up on him.
Las esperanzas del final del asedio parecieron evaporarse cuando se anunció que David Koresh estaba escribiendo su interpretación de los 7 sellos bíblicos del libro de las revelaciones.
Mr. Koresh does not have any more than a 9th grade education, so he does not write very well. So everything will have to be rewritten. So I figure 4 or 5 months tops.
Pero los agentes federales no estaban dispuestos a esperar otros 4 o 5 meses. Había rumores de que dentro del recinto se abusaba de los niños. En el día número 51 del asedio se acabó el tiempo para David Koresh.
Early this morning, armored vehicles entered cult leader David Koresh's compound and began punching large holes in the walls. Koresh and about 90 of his followers are believed to be inside.
Se bombardeó gas lacrimógeno en un esfuerzo por forzar a los davidianos a salir del recinto.
Throughout the morning, the tanks went in, taking hostile fire from cult members, saturating the compound with choking gas.
The occupants in the compound were advised, this is not an assault. Do not fire. If you fire, your fire will be returned. We are introducing non-lethal tear gas.
Las autoridades declararon que creían que el gas lacrimógeno impediría que se llevara a cabo un suicidio colectivo del cual se había escuchado rumores, pero se equivocaron.
As an armored vehicle administered another dose of tear gas, the Branch Davidian brought the house down around them. Smoke, then flames erupted from the second floor. FBI sharpshooters say they witnessed cult members setting fires in at least 2 locations. Whipped by the stiff Texas wind, reportedly fueled by kerosene and explosives stored inside, the fire engulfed the compound within minutes. No one expected a biblical-style inferno.
I can't tell you the shock and the horror that all of us felt when we saw those flames coming out there. It was, oh my God, they're killing themselves. We did not want that to occur.
Aún así, los camiones de bomberos tardaron 30 minutos en llegar al recinto. Para ese entonces no quedaba nada que salvar. El edificio estaba reducido a cenizas y escombros. De más de 80 personas que se encontraban adentro, solo 9 sobrevivieron. David Koresh no estaba entre los sobrevivientes.
He had predicted all this to happen. He told us that it would end up this way, that he would be a martyr.
Well, I think a lot of questions need to be asked about why today, why was it so important to run those tanks in there and the tear gas today? Why couldn't it wait to see if this would be a peaceful solution like David assured us that it would be?
I don't think it was mishandled. I think the FBI has acted very professionally, very ably, and with remarkable restraint.
Pero la madre de uno de los miembros del culto que murió en el primer ataque de la ATF 51 días antes dijo que ambos lados eran culpables.
All those people that went in there to study the Bible. They were misguided, yes. They were led astray by David Koresh. And they're victims of David Koresh, but now they're also victims of our government.
Para muchas personas dentro y fuera del gobierno, la muerte de los davidianos fue una tragedia espantosa que suscitaba muchas preguntas sobre las tácticas y estrategias tanto del FBI como de la ATF. Las repercusiones de Waco al regreso en siglo. Es difícil creer que menos de un año después de lo ocurrido en Ruby Ridge, agentes del FBI y la ATF volverían a cometer los mismos errores en Texas, pero así fue. El asedio de Waco estaba atado a burocracia, comunicaciones, deficientes encubrimientos y, peor aún, una estrategia militar que optó por una confrontación en lugar de paciencia y prudencia.
We don't want to second guess, but on the other hand, the worst possible result happened from this operation. A lot of lives lost, and so a lot of questions arise as to whether this was the most appropriate course of action to be taken.
El desenlace de la catástrofe en las afueras de Waco comenzó casi antes de que se enfriaran las cenizas de lo que había sido el recinto de los davidianos. El blanco favorito de las críticas era la procuradora general Janet Reno.
I made the decision. I'm accountable. The buck stops with me, and nobody ever accused me of running from a decision.
And it wasn't.
Ella ofreció su renuncia por lo sucedido, pero el presidente Clinton la rechazó de inmediato. Aún así, había muchas reflexiones, especialmente dentro del Congreso.
This is a profound disgrace to law enforcement in the United States of America. And you did the right thing by offering to resign. And now I'd like you to know that there is at least one member in the Congress that isn't going to rationalize the death of 24 children.
I haven't tried to rationalize the death of children, Congressman. I feel more strongly about it than you will ever know. But I have neither tried to rationalize the death of 4 ATF agents. But most of all, Congressman, I will not engage in recrimination. I will look to
Sin embargo, las recriminaciones por el desempeño de los agentes del FBI y la ATF continuaban aumentando.
There was incredible stupidity, incompetence, and provocation by a reckless and overreaching federal agency.
We watched families, our friends, my son's wife, his children, all burn up before our very eyes. And we're pretty hurt.
And this is a terrible case of abuse of power. This started with an abuse of power when the ATF went in there like the Marines storming the beach, and it ended with an abuse of power when they made the wrong decision to start pushing over walls and inserting tear gas with tanks. Now, why didn't they wait? That question really needs to be asked over and over again.
Question is, do we have any regrets? We always have regrets when human life is lost. What we do not regret is that we believe that this thing had to be brought to a logical conclusion at some point. We did not want this to occur. At some point, we had to up the ante.
Pero muchos se preguntaban por qué el FBI y la ATF se sintieron presionados a actuar cuando lo hicieron. Una razón, simple fatiga.
We made some judgments based on the fact that experts told us that the hostage rescue team should not and could not remain in place for any permanent period of time without being relieved.
Otra razón para el ataque final, evitar que los niños dentro del recinto fueran víctimas de más abusos.
Remember, David Koresh had a history of abuse. He married an 11-year-old girl in the compound. He took different wives at will, and the children were beaten several times. Now, there is no specific evidence, as the FBI director said, that there was child abuse going on, say, Friday or Saturday night, but there was an awful lot of evidence that there had been child abuse over time in that compound.
Igualmente se preguntaban por qué los bomberos tardaron tanto en llegar.
While federal agents were prepared for a shootout with cult members, it's clear from tapes of the first calls to local fire stations that they never expected the compound to go up in flames.
Sheriff's Office Dispatch? Yeah. Is this Hosford? Yeah, it is. Okay, they've got a fire at the compound?
Tell me.
And are y'all en route?
No, we're looking at it. We're just waiting for you.
Okay, take off then.
Para el otoño de 1993, una investigación independiente comisionada por Lloyd Bentsen, secretario de la Tesorería, había llegado a sus propias conclusiones, específicamente sobre la torpe incursión del ATF y los esfuerzos que le siguieron para encubrir sus errores.
I was deeply disappointed by what I learned, but knowing human nature, I wasn't totally surprised, yes.
El informe reveló que había información de inteligencia que había sido ignorada y órdenes desobedecidas, comenzando desde el primer día cuando continuó el ataque a pesar de las órdenes de abortar la misión si el elemento de sorpresa quedaba eliminado.
The two raid leaders were told clearly by an undercover agent that Koresh knew they were coming. After the raid, the commanders claimed they hadn't been told and tried to blame the failure on the undercover agent, but others told the truth.
61 agents told us that they heard the deputy raid commander say, "Hurry up, they know we're coming."
Other key findings include ATF did not pursue options less risky than the raid. The agents didn't have the necessary expertise. Intelligence was faulty, and it was a TV cameraman who inadvertently tipped the cult.
Esta molesta imagen de agentes federales fuera de control salió a la luz justo cuando Randy Weaver y su amigo Kevin Harris fueron a juicio en una corte federal de Idaho por el asesinato del alguacil William Deegan en Ruby Ridge. El enfrentamiento donde resultaron muertos la esposa y el hijo de 14 años de Weaver. La estrategia de defensa de Weaver fue en defensa personal contra los desalmados agentes federales que venían a arrestarlo. El veredicto, inocente.
Weaver was convicted only of 2 lesser charges. White supremacists outside the courthouse were jubilant.
Tell the truth, and the truth shall make you free. What do you think did it for him? Yahweh! Hallelujah!
Critics say the government botched the case.
The government's own egregious misbehavior and misconduct helped extraordinarily in generating the acquittals in this case.
There are eerie parallels with Waco. In both cases, government miscalculation in the arrest of a fanatic ended in gunfire and death. In this case, many believe government miscalculations in the courtroom handed victory to the fanatics.
Las semejanzas con el caso de Waco se hicieron aún más evidentes en enero del año 94, cuando 11 davidianos sobrevivientes fueron a juicio en Texas por las muertes de los 4 agentes federales ocurridas en ese enfrentamiento. Nuevamente, la defensa pensaba argumentar que el único responsable de la muerte y la violencia en ese caso era el gobierno extremista de los Estados Unidos.
What we're really going to see is sort of a view into government conduct. And it's really, regardless of the outcome, it's going to be a question of the government on trial.
El veredicto 6 semanas después sugirió otra victoria moral para quienes dicen defenderse de los abusos del gobierno. Los 11 davidianos fueron absueltos de los cargos de conspiración y asesinato. 5 de ellos fueron condenados por el cargo de homicidio impremeditado.
The only people that were convicted of the serious offense of voluntary manslaughter, the jury had to first find that the government had provoked that action by its own actions.
2 defendants were found guilty of weapons charges, but 4 of the 11 were found not guilty of any charges, including a very emotional Clive Doyle.
Well, I'm very happy to be free today, but it's somewhat of a hollow victory because a lot of our friends are not walking out with us.
El veredicto de inocentes repercutió mayormente entre aquellos de la derecha radical que estaban convencidos que el gobierno federal estaba empeñado en erradicar las libertades individuales fundamentales.
Waco and Ruby Ridge has changed America because for the militia movement and those that were looking at some ideological cornerstone to attach their conspiracy theories to and to organize around, these have become sort of watershed events of the government coming after ordinary citizens.
And we don't need anybody from Washington, from any place else, telling us how we should live or how we should do things.
And if the government continues to distance itself from the people, and it continues to alienate the people from it, then war is inevitable, revolution is inevitable.
Commence firing.
And we're not going to be enslaved.
The militia movement has taken these 2 tragic instances and recast these events into a latter-day government coming down on individuals on a really massive, evil, pernicious level.
Pero no solo la extrema derecha estaba desilusionada del gobierno federal. Los estadounidenses de todas las facciones políticas se alzaron en noviembre del año 94 para elegir a la mayoría más conservadora del Congreso en casi 50 años.
The people were tired of big government, wasteful spending, dumb bureaucracies, and ineffective red tape.
Aun cuando no era una prioridad para ellos, muchos en el Congreso republicano, muchos legisladores electos, compartían la frustración de los electores por las acciones de la ATF y el FBI en Waco y Ruby Ridge.
If the Congress would open up again what happened at Waco and lay everything on the table, God, if our government would be honest with us for a change, then the people wouldn't need to feel this kind of anger.
Mientras el nuevo Congreso prometió realizar audiencias de esos trágicos eventos, un pequeño grupo violento y enojado decidió tomar la justicia en sus manos, enviando a la nación un terrible mensaje propio. Esa historia, al regreso en siglo 1995, la nueva Casa Republicana y el Senado comenzaron a investigar lo ocurrido en Ruby Ridge y Waco. Era un cambio sorpresivo que los tradicionales conservadores criticaran a los profesionales encargados de imponer la ley. Pero para muchos fuera de Washington, estas promesas no eran suficientes. Lo que deseaban era venganza.
Holy cow. About a third of the building has been blown away.
19 de abril de 1995, una poderosa bomba explota en el edificio federal Alfred P. Murrah de la ciudad de Oklahoma, el cual alberga 15 agencias federales, entre ellas las oficinas de la ATF. Se cree que cerca de 900 personas se encuentran dentro del edificio, incluyendo docenas de niños en el hogar de cuidado diario llamado Los Niños de América.
Make no mistake about it, this was an attack on the United States, our way of life, and everything we believe in. We will find the people who did this.
Cuando finalmente terminó el conteo de cadáveres, 169 personas habían muerto, incluyendo 19 niños.
If this is not a crime for which capital punishment is called, I don't know what is.
Inicialmente el gobierno creyó que el bombardeo en Oklahoma era obra del terrorismo del Medio Oriente, pero luego hubo reflexiones.
But authorities are also considering the possibility of a revenge bombing against any of the federal agencies in the building.
Fue el día del bombardeo 19 de abril, lo que llevó a los investigadores a sospechar que la raíz del terrorismo en este caso provenía del corazón de Estados Unidos.
A Montana militia newsletter obtained by CBS News points to April 19th, the day of the bombing, as a day for action. It was on April 19th of 1993, the newsletter says, that the Branch Davidian complex in Waco was burned. And April 19th, 1992, that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents first tried to raid white supremacist Randy Weaver's home in Idaho.
Para los movimientos de milicia, el 19 de abril era el equivalente a Pearl Harbor.
So they've created this image of April 19th as the date that the government really started its war against the American people. And that is why that date resonates and continues to resonate with this movement.
Un movimiento en el que los malos eran los que tenían las placas.
The ATF are the criminals, not me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I didn't shoot Randy Weaver's wife in the face. I didn't murder 80-some people at Waco.
I cannot believe that any serious, patriotic American believes that the conduct of those people at Waco justifies the kind of outrageous behavior we've seen here at Oklahoma City or the kind of inflammatory rhetoric that we're hearing all across this country today.
Mientras continuaba la investigación del bombardeo en la ciudad de Oklahoma, el Congreso abrió nuevas audiencias por lo sucedido en Waco y Ruby Ridge.
If you would raise your right hand, please, gentlemen.
Robert Rodríguez, un agente encubierto de la ATF, testificó que había advertido a dos supervisores que David Koresh sabía que el ataque en el recinto de los davidianos estaba a punto de comenzar.
He was shaking real bad. He was breathing real hard, and I'm looking at him. And again, he turns to me and says, "They're coming, Robert. The time has come."
Rodriguez telephoned his bosses that surprise was blown just before the raid helicopters took off. Moments later, ATF agents walked into a hail of bullets. Rodriguez's superiors said they thought he was only repeating one of Koresh's frequent prophecies of doom.
Those two men know what I told them, and they knew exactly what I meant. And instead of coming up and admitting to the American people, instead of doing that, they lied to the public.
Y según los oficiales, los errores de los agentes de la ATF en la primera incursión fueron agravados por la manera como el FBI incrementó la tensión durante el asedio de 51 días siguientes.
I've looked at several cases involving the FBI, including Waco. I've noticed some troubling patterns. Traditionally, the Bureau relied on negotiations to bring about a peaceful settlement of hostage or barricade situations. Lethal force was distant. It was a last alternative.
La diferencia, dijo el senador Grace Lee, fue que el equipo de rescate de rehenes del FBI estaba dirigido por un antiguo oficial del ejército. Esa unidad se entrenaba con los militares estadounidenses, aprendiendo las reglas de asedios extranjeros que luego aplicaban en casa.
The presumption was to use a hostile solution before negotiations. This is the same upside-down strategy used at Ruby Ridge.
The subcommittee this morning opens hearings on what happened at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, more than 3 years ago in August of 19...
En su testimonio ante el Senado, Randy Weaver se convirtió en un testigo que inspiraba simpatía.
I've said things that have been wrong. I've done things that were wrong, and I've paid a very heavy price for those things.
En su testimonio formal, asumió la responsabilidad por sus errores e inclusive cuestionó algunas de sus ideas extremistas y antigubernamentales.
I'm not without fault in this matter. I was convicted of failure to appear for trial on charges I had sold a sawed-off shotgun to an ATF informant. If I had it to do over again, knowing what I know now, I would make different choices. I'd come down from the mountain for the court appearance. But my wrongs did not cause federal agents to commit crimes. Nothing I did caused federal agents to violate the Constitution of the United States. I have been accountable for my choices. They should be held accountable for their wrongs. but no federal agent has been...
Pero el encontrar esos errores era más fácil de decir que de hacer. El comité no podía determinar quién había iniciado el primer ataque en Ruby Ridge que dejó sin vida al joven Sammy Weaver, ni tampoco quién en el FBI había aprobado los procedimientos considerados poco profesionales que ocasionaron la muerte de Vicki Weaver.
Several of you within the top echelons of the FBI were operating under different notions of what the rules of engagement really were. Is that correct?
It's apparent now that we were, yes, sir.
Larry Potts era uno de los dos hombres a cargo de la sede del FBI en Washington durante los sucesos de Ruby Ridge. Los francotiradores del FBI afirman haber tenido órdenes de matar que provenían del alto mando.
In your judgment, who gave the approval?
The highest authority that I know of was Mr. Potts.
Pero Potts declaró que no recordaba que fuese así.
Glenn and I never discussed the can and should language of the rewritten rules of engagement.
I believe that it's embarrassing that we cannot even determine who approved rules of engagement that were drafted in part at FBI headquarters.
Reglas que una vez puestas en práctica condujeron al asesinato de Vicki Weaver.
It's a mystery made even more frustrating for the Senate by FBI Director Louis Freeh's decision to promote Potts to the number 2 job in the Bureau despite Ruby Ridge.
Why did Director Freeh promote you, in your opinion, Mr. Potts?
After his review of the incident, he did not believe that it should prevent me from occupying that position.
I think there is a strong indication here that the initial investigation and even the oversight investigation by FBI either failed to recognize the problems or ignored them.
Una posición que el mismo director del FBI adoptó luego de una severa crítica por parte del Departamento de Justicia.
As I have noted before, the rules of engagement adopted for Ruby Ridge were so poorly worded that they could have been interpreted to direct agents to act contrary to the Bureau's deadly force policy.
FBI employees exhibited improper judgment, neglect of duty, or failure to exert proper managerial oversight. These are serious shortcomings, unacceptable in life or death situations like Ruby Ridge.
El director del FBI disciplinó a docenas de agentes involucrados en el caso de Ruby Ridge, incluyendo al director delegado Larry Potts, apenas 2 meses después que fuera ascendido.
The irony of the Weaver trial is that everybody involved would have been better off to play by the rules. Randy Weaver, who was ultimately acquitted, would have been well advised to appear for his court date rather than hide out on his mountaintop and challenge the government to get him. The FBI would have been much better advised to treat this case like any other, treat it as a garden variety bank robbery, and play by the rules rather than trying to bend them.
El gobierno de Estados Unidos pagó $3.1 millones para resolver la demanda de $200 millones de Randy Weaver por muerte injustificada. Y en otoño del 95, el FBI puso en práctica un nuevo reglamento acerca del uso de la fuerza implacable.
Essentially, it says deadly force can be used only when necessary and only when agents have a reasonable belief they or someone else are in imminent danger.
Las audiencias en el Congreso por los sucesos de Waco y Ruby Ridge no lograron detener el crecimiento de miles de movimientos de milicias y nadie en el Congreso sugirió realizar audiencias sobre eso, tal vez por una razón: racismo.
Imagine for a second that the Oklahoma City bombing happened on April 19th and the 2 people arrested and charged with that bombing were 2 black Americans, 2 Arab Americans associated with a movement of 10 to 40,000 armed, either black or Arab Americans, that were talking about the need to have war with the federal government and arming for that purpose. You would have seen members of Congress leaving skid marks to hold massive hearings into that.
God bless America.
But because this is predominantly a white movement, and a white male movement, it's taken with a lot less seriousness than I think it ought to be.
Algunas reflexiones sobre Waco, Ruby Ridge y las milicias al regreso en siglo. El senador Barry Goldwater dijo: el extremismo en la defensa de la libertad no es un vicio y la moderación en la búsqueda de la justicia no es una virtud. Pero en los casos de Ruby Ridge y Waco, parece que un grupo de estadounidenses llevó ese pensamiento mucho más allá de lo que Goldwater imaginaba. Algunos agentes federales en la búsqueda de la justicia olvidaron la virtud de la moderación. y algunos ciudadanos, llevados por la ira contra su propio gobierno, llegaron a los extremos de la violencia por defender su libertad. Mientras ambos grupos se mantuvieran amargamente enemistados, continuarían burlándose de las palabras que todos aprendemos de memoria cuando recitamos el compromiso de lealtad. Para una nación, bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Soy Mike Wallace y esto es Siglo XX.